Well, hello and welcome back, my Royal Rogues. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue, and I want to talk about Harry's shenanigans when he was a teenager. There are these reports that I have totally missed because, well, they are around 2002. They are really old, even before there was any Twitter, even before there was any Meghan in sight. So I want to talk about them and make some remarks about why that comparison between being a teenager, that we all did crazy things being teenagers. I have to say that, of course. But at the same time, there's a problem when you are an adult and do not do something about those teenage years shenanigans. And that's the distinction I want to do today. But first, I want to talk about my sources that confirm that Meghan's dogs, Guy and Mia, have yet to be invited to the coronation, just a few weeks away. How insensitive. Silence from Buckingham Palace, as usual. How insensitive of them. And this is, of course, a joke that I had to do regarding all these headlines. Archie and Lilibet won't be invited to coronation. They cannot even read an invitation card or anything. They can't just see the little pictures in Hallmark cards or those cards that you open and they have music. That's it. You will need a spoken invitation card. But Camilla's grandchildren will. Royals in fresh snub to Harry and Meghan, who they hope will be seated in Iceland for ceremony. Oh my God. But well, we have this. We have the joke about Guy and Mia, and Anita on Twitter. Silence is betrayal for the dogs. I laugh out loud with this one. If you were asking, don't they have 3 therapy dogs? Well, Pula is black, and you know that for all the racism and everything that the Duke and Duchess of Sausages, they have this push for anti-racism, and all that I say about that, well, they don't have much diversity at Archwell. They don't have much diversity at where Harry at Better Up. I saw him talking to a whole office where there was not much diversity. So you know how it is. But also, the chickens have not been invited. How insensitive of Buckingham Palace. And this is an idea for Meghan, since she is always talking and thinking and dreaming and working hard for the money. Meghan should jump on the pet tiaras bandwagon. She'd make a fortune. That's thanks to Duchess Pinocchio that made the remark. Are they going to receive royal titles and a tiara for the event? But no, one final meme before we get into the topic of today. Lean Mean Machine. Meghan Narcissus won on Twitter. When you want privacy at the Oscars. Did you see Meghan? Can you spot Meghan in here? It's a bit hard to spot her because, well, she will be, I don't think she will ever be trying to hide, but this was, I also laugh out loud with this. But thanks to Unlikely Bot, who retweeted HRH Queen Salty Duchess Regina 1 article from 2002. And I'm gonna explain why this article is relevant. The mother of another teen staying at Cornwall said the princess' attitude to women was intolerable. What was going on? What's going on? Harry was legless and speechless. And I was finding out that this is a New York Post article from 2002, headlined, Hellraiser Harry lured girls to estate for booze and dope fests. Pot-smoking Prince Harry was described last night as a party animal who lured teenage girls back to the basement of his dad's country home for private booze parties. And yes, many people on Twitter, when I was retweeting this, they say, well, but this was Harry at 16 years old and 17 years old. But let's move on. So let's make a point here. Details of Harry's wild nights last summer emerged after yesterday's revelation that Charles sent him to the Featherstone Lodge Rehab Center after learning his son got high. And Highgrove, well, maybe the place was, I don't know, Highgrove? High. No offense to my dear rogues from Highgrove, it's just a joke. Harry also admitted to pot smoking and boozing at the local Rattlebone Inn, a few miles from Highgrove, getting high for the first time with a Paul in an outhouse next to the pub. What's relevant yet? This, the visit to rehab, during which Harry listened to the horror stories of hardcore drug addicts, was said to have scared him straight, and he hasn't used drugs since. I have my doubts that didn't end the way they thought it was going to end. Locals revealed Harry used the Rattlebone as a recruitment center for the women he would invite back to his dad's estate, locals said. How would you like to come back to my palace for a drink? Pub regulars at the Rattlebone quoted Harry as asking numerous female patrons last summer. I'm not going to go as far as to say that this is predatory behavior, as long as we have some idea that Harry changed his behavior later on. But we are not that sure of that happening. He came quite often. And I'm going to make some observations about these remarks. Of course, a lot of young girls from villages around here would come to try to catch his eye. You can hardly blame them, can you? That sounds, you know that I'm quite traditional, but even, I don't know, this sounds a bit like blaming the girls for whatever happened. Okay, for whatever Harry did, you can hardly blame them for trying to catch Harry's eye. Like they knew what they were getting into. I don't think that works that way. And I don't think the parents of these girls think that it works that way. Pub regular David Bragg told London's Mail on Sunday. It was also revealed that, well, this is a minor offense, that Harry became embroiled in a bitter fight with a French worker at the Rattlebone last summer. When the employee asked him to leave, Harry reportedly called him a effing frog. London's Sunday Times said. You know that frog is the derogatory term for the French. I don't see it. I don't think it's I would not use that word, but I think that is regular teenage vocabulary. But during a shooting party at the Duke of Westminster's Grosvenor estate 2 years ago, the prince disgraced himself by getting drunk and throwing up across the bar. Okay, maybe it just happened once. Harry was legless and speechless. The catering staff were appalled because they were left to clear up the vomit, one eyewitness said. Prince William was said to be livid at the behavior, commenting, "He's my brother, but he is a bloody liability." I agree with that. And still, Harry is also reported to have thrown bottles and drunkenly abused what? Teenage girls during a holiday in Cornwall 2 summers ago. I said I used the word molested on Twitter, and somebody corrected me that no, that he did not molest. Well, then the words is he drunkenly abused. Not my words, but the New York Post words. So if the New York Post has not been sued yet, there you have it. Harry was sitting on a wall outside a pub. In between throwing cider bottles, he was vomiting behind a wall. He is one of the most revolting people I've ever met, one girl told the Mail. The mother of another teen staying at Cornwall said the prince's attitude to women was intolerable. I agree with that. So that's how we get to here. They are there to be used and abused, touch up and mock around about with. She said that is not regardless of what some comments that I got like this comments like this. Shouldn't that read normal teenager enjoys normal night for a teenager? Well, maybe, but just to be clear, smoking pot, getting drunk until vomiting across the bar, throwing bottles, abusing girls, I don't know, is that's the standard of behavior of a normal teenager, then that's one of the hints why the Western world has gone to shit. There's no other way to put it. And this is my issue with Harry's behavior back then and Harry's behavior right now. My point with Harry's teenage shenanigans is that the chap doesn't even have the awareness to realize that it was a constant cope via power games over girls and substance abuse. He was coping, all right. He had this behavior problems. Okay, his mother had passed away in a tragic accident. That's so bad. But fast forward 20 years and he's still coping through power games and substances and proud of it. Which power games? All the power games that he's enabling through, being Meghan attacked by the press and by proxy. The real attack comes from the royal family, who are the ones who order those attacks via the British press. So those are power games. And those power games he's using, he went from power games on teenage girls at villages to power games in international settings using all the misdirection and all the misinformation he has at his disposal in interviews, in his book, and everything. Doesn't matter how. He's just trying to cope with something, and all the therapy that he's been going through, it has worked zero, has not worked at all. And the substances, well, the ayahuasca, the marijuana, the cocaine, it's something that it is not cutting it. The professional victimhood is very destructive in many ways, and this is something that I have to say. As a former therapist and as a professional, as a human being, as a man to a man, Harry, this is not the way. This is not the way you learn from your mistakes, because I can understand. That's why I say maybe this is not should not be standard teenage behavior. This should not be endorsed or condoned or brushed off as every teenager has a face like this. It should not be that way, because even as a teenager, one has to have responsibility over the holiness of your own body. And if you're drunking yourself into oblivion every weekend, that's coping with things that are happening around you and inside you, and that is not normal. That is just not normal. But even if someone is smoking pot, getting drunk, throwing bottles, and abusing women in these settings, teenager stuff, not standard, but teenager stuff, there should be a moment and you realize that you feel ashamed of yourself. Do you think the book Spare is an example or something that we could say that Harry is ashamed of his past behavior as a teenager? It doesn't look like it, right? He hasn't matured. And now he's gaslighting from a victimhood veil. That's actually what is happening. That's what I want you to see. He is gaslighting behind that veil, and he will keep gaslighting. He will keep keep being that teenager that is using these power games and is using substances and is using manipulation to try to do something, to find some kind of, to cope with the fact that his life has no purpose or meaning yet, even after having kids. even after having kids. That is not something that any man could look up to. And if a teenage boy has this pattern of behavior, well, there has something to be done about it. My Royal Rogues, my name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue, and until we meet on another video or another live, remember the two most important words: much love and bliss. Bye-bye.